We've been rocking out to Linkin Park, haven't we?
Yeah.
And reminiscing about
being 15. Long time ago.
listening to new metal and what did you say? You love Puddle of Mud?
Puddle of Mud, Blurry, Nickelback.
And then I realised I'm surrounded by two men who listen to Nickelback, and I'm really rethinking my life decisions.
Mate, back me up here. Nickelback.
Stickleback.
Canadian rock gods.
Yeah,
Welcome to the Perk and Pace Podcast.
I swear it gets better.
I'm Lydia.
I'm Matt.
And today we're going to talk about Hyrox. I'll come back to that in a minute. But first of all, we've started our nice little routine where I make you a coffee at the beginning of each session. So today...
Let's have a sip.
Okay. Last time we tasted something a bit crazy. This kind of smells a bit more like coffee to me.
Yeah, it's a bit more blunt, like a bit more rawer.
a bit more blurry.
Yeah.
On brand.
Oh,
I mean, to be honest, this might be in the brew. I might not have brewed this so well, this one. I'm not always perfect. So.
I'm getting woody vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one's from Kenya. It's by a roaster called Conscious Coffee, who are great because they're really, really small. They're a husband-wife duo and they're really lovely. But they will always pick coffee farmers and coffee producers who are super small, like micro lot, really small. One of them, not this one, but I dealt with them when I bought a coffee from Peru from them, where the farmer was struggling to get his coffee to market because all he had was a mule, and he would literally load up this mule and like rock it down the mountain and try and get it to market. So they used the money from that coffee to help him build a road, get a car. So they're really like solving they're trying to solve some of the problems in the coffee world. But
small business.
This is from Kenya, and Kenyan coffee is often. Do you know much about Kenyan coffee?
I don't. Talk to me.
So it's well known for being quite acidic and quite bold in flavour. Like Kenyan coffee is one of the ones where I'm really bad at blind tasting.
Yeah.
I can't just go, oh, that's from here, that's from there. Some people can, but Kenyan is one of the ones where I can take a mouthful and go, that tastes Kenyan as fuck, because it's often quite acidic and. All right, lads, you know.
Kenyan.
I'm such a lady. But they're also really fruity. They can be really like wildly fruity. This one says it tastes like blackcurrant jam, but blackberry jam. Orange zest, definitely getting that level of like acidity citrus. But I do think I maybe overbrewed this a little bit. So
I quite like it.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. But yeah, Hyrox.
Yes.
So Matt is gonna answer all of my Hyrox questions today because I am going into my first solo 4 weeks today from when we're recording. Madrid. Yeah. So really in the hopes to sort of pick on your knowledge and what you know about it and your experiences, ask all the questions that maybe might be considered stupid or naive.
No, that's all,
but I think first of all maybe we should kind of explain the Hyrox race to anyone who doesn't know.
I've had this bottle of water sat here right in front of
Thanks, Ian.
That's all right.
Ian's our camera operator, producer.
Not for long, he's not.
Just in case you know it sounds better.
So Hyrox, we've got 8 kilometres of running, broken up into kilometres, and then broken up by stations.
Yeah.
And those stations are ski erg,
sled push,
sled pull. And they will vary depending, like weight-wise, depending on what category you're in.
So it changes for men and women, and also for pro.
Yes.
And open. And then you've got your
burpee broad jumps.
Yeah. Burpee broad jump. You've got row.
And then I get the next two confused and I should learn this.
Kettlebell.
Farmer's carries, then the lunges, then the wall balls.
And then the wall balls, and then you're done.
And the goal is to do it as fast as possible.
To not die. Yeah.
The goal is not to die. Yeah,
complete the race.
Totally. So, yeah, we've mentioned before that I've done doubles before, but you've done multiple singles.
I have, yeah.
Have you ever competed in doubles or relay or anything like that?
Yes, Podiumed in men's doubles.
Nice.
So we shout out Kieran Parkinson, who is a phenomenal athlete. He's probably one of the best sort of non-UK pros, if you can call it that. So he's just on the cusp of sort of trying to break into the Elite 15. And we did doubles, I think it was about 18 months ago in Manchester. Men's doubles open. Didn't probably run as quick as we wanted to, but we were racing against Alexander Ronkovic, who's the current world champion, and Tiago, which is he's a Portuguese guy. He was ex-military, like super fast pro, we came second to them, which was you know,
that's mega. I didn't know that.
In itself was good. And it was the first time we ever raced together. But yeah, shout out to Kieran because he's really gone on to do some like incredible open. I think he one time had the European Open record for 30 to 34,
nice.
Which was like something silly like 56 minutes.
Rapid.
So, but yeah, no, I've had some good success. I've had, you know, a few years of injury. Probably not ran as, I guess, for me, as quick as I know I can run, just with my running background and that sort of thing. But it's super exciting because, one, it's obviously accessible to everybody, and I think that's a big attraction to the event. I think that's why it's blown up so fast over the last, you know, 2-3 years. And people are only just getting quicker and quicker. You're seeing the standard just go like through the roof. So from a competitive standpoint, it's, you know, it's exactly what you want, really. So yeah.
So cast your mind back to the first one you ever did.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that now?
My first one was Birmingham in, I want to say 22 or 21.
Okay.
Yeah, so a few years back. Again, I knew of the race in itself, and this was when, you know, Birmingham nowadays has got, I think, like 15,000 people competing. Which
I couldn't get a ticket, it was impossible. Yeah,
it's just insane. But this was back when the sport, I want to say, was like still fairly unknown to the masses. It's like, unless you were in that fitness racing community, you didn't really know about Hyrox. But yeah, so first race, I'd just got back to some form of like my own standard of good running, and wanted to try it out. Really went out too fast, like most people.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, did you have a plan? Did you have a strategy going into that one?
Not like I'd like to say I have now. With the races after, I just went in there and ultimately did what you probably shouldn't do and compete with everybody on each station, sort of thing. Right. I knew where, you know, my target ski erg time was roughly about. Had no clue about the sled push or sled pull, and just tried to make it through the race, really. But it was super humbling because, you know, I think people look at it and you're either in two camps, right? You either want to do it as like a bit of a participant and you want to sort of test yourself, which is why the race is incredible, right? Because you can get people from all different backgrounds and abilities, but there's also, you know, a segment of people that want to race it, that want to push themselves, that want to, you know, see personally where their thresholds are and limits are, and that's what's great about the race, because it can change so much across 8 stations and 8 kilometres. And people think it's a short race. It's not. You know, you're running a high intensity threshold for like over an hour for most people, if not an hour and a half. So yeah, that was my sort of game plan. But yeah, it wasn't a car crash, but it was good.
I'm going to put in. Do you think it benefits being a runner?
Yes, 100%.
It's a running race, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what, like, you know, over 50% of the race is running. And it was really interesting because when Hyrox really started getting popular, you had a lot of, you know, runners do the event and they'd absolutely smash the intervals, if you want to call it that, the K reps in between, but they'd really struggle on the power or strength exercises.
K reps, by the way, he's not referring to ketamine, which is what I would consider. Yeah.
Casual A-class drug.
K rep, I've just learned, means a kilometre.
A kilometre rep, yeah. Kilometre rep, but you'd get, like, you know, you get the CrossFit community come in, you know, incredible Olympic lifters, super strong, but they're all like 90 to 100 kilos and they'd absolutely tank it on the runs, yeah. So it was and that, again, that's why it's an attractive event and that's why it's got so popular. But we've even seen it at the elite level. You know, there is a body type and a sort of avatar for what the creme de la creme looks like, and you can see that across the elite 15. Like, all the men are above 6 foot, most of them. They're all around 85 to 90 kilos. You know, you obviously get anomalies where they're lighter athletes and they can, you know, their aerobic base is so superior that they can almost warrant not being as strong on some of the stations. But if you look across the board, there's like a certain avatar, and I think it's the same with the women's event as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, like Megan Jacoby, her physique is insane, absolute goals.
Former track runner.
Yeah, so absolutely.
That is, you know, people, when you look at the stories and the backgrounds of all the athletes, you can see, you can see a story. You can see, you know, most of them have done some sort of like OCR or, you know, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not fitness events, but they've done obstacle course racing, and things like that, or they've come from like a swimming background or a track background. So, there's definitely a theme there, and it definitely suits itself to a certain avatar. Yeah.
So, you mentioned, you know, you didn't have a clue about the said push, said pull and stuff like. So, were there stations that you were dreading at the time?
No, I was really like probably arrogant in that. Yeah, to be brutally honest, I was really arrogant. You know, I'd always been like a slightly bigger frame or runner compared to most people.
Sure. Yeah.
So like, you know, I started off doing 800 meters, which is, it's classed as a middle distance event, but really it's an extended sprint. So you have to have, again, a really good aerobic base, but you have to have a really high lactic threshold so you can cope with that acidosis and build-up of lactate and still do the work. And I was there thinking to myself, well, you know, I'd always been fairly strong for my weight, and you know, I can quite easily put on mass if I need to, and it just seemed the right thing for me to do. I'm above 6 foot, so it just lent itself that way. But in terms of, you know, my weaknesses, I knew my running would be the strong part. But again, without getting too technical or deep diving, you can't just be a good runner, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of it's not just running, it's compromised running. So how well can you run under fatigue is something that, you know, you could be a great runner, but can you run a 4-minute kilometre after pushing a 200 kilo sled?
Sure.
So that's a different dynamic. That goes back into like, how are you training? What are your training principles? All that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, I knew there were always exercise stations where I could almost not wing it, but use it as a bit of a recovery. So like, you know, the farmer's carry is one, the row is another one. But then obviously learn over time that you obviously need a strategy and you need to pace it.
Well, you mentioned strategy. I was going to ask now, like, how that's changed for you, like going into them, or the next time you race, for example. How will that strategy change now compared to how you went into your first ones?
Yeah, so training is completely different for me, because again, you know, nowadays every individual is a Hyrox expert nowadays. As soon as you do one race, it's like, buy my Hyrox program and all this sort of stuff. So it's,
by the way, buy Hyrox.
Yeah, link in bio. So I mean, we'll talk about this probably a lot more with and our guest next week. But you know, when you talk about training principles for like a hybrid event, because it is a hybrid event, you get everybody with every idea under the sun saying this is how you should train, and it's very, from my experience, and again there's people out there that are a lot more experienced than I am and have run a lot quicker, but you know, you have to do what works for you. You have to really you know, use your strengths to your advantage. If you're a runner, don't just start thinking, okay, well, I'm a runner, I'm going to absolutely pound the strength work and pile on a load of weight and end up just, you know, my running tanking and you know, doing semi-well on the stations. It really depends on what your weaknesses are, what you need to work on, and it needs to be balanced. You know, you do need to have, in my opinion, structure around, you need a good aerobic base. It's just the fact that it is an aerobic event. If you have a poor aerobic base, it means your lactic threshold isn't going to be as high as it could be, so you're not going to be able to deal with the stimulus of all the lactic that's going on. You need to have a good running plan as well. So like, you know, are you running at race pace? Are you getting your body used to running at that intensity? You need a good strength program that's involved with that, because obviously Hyrox is a strength-based event. And then you need to mix in the modalities of, you know, your skill specific work, because as simple as it sounds, a lunge is an easy thing to do. You ever tried to do a lunge under fatigue with a 30 kilo bag on your back? It's a lot of core, it's a lot of concentration, it's a lot of, do I take a step up or do I just step all the way through? So these are just like all race tactics that you need to consider when you're building this machine that you're trying to build to cope with Hyrox.
It's definitely easy to get cocky because I remember looking at like the women's open weights, and I've always
you've been
trained
really
strength.
Yeah.
So I'm like, 10 kilogram on my back, because all it is to women.
Yeah.
But like after I've done all that running, that starts to feel heavy real quick.
Yeah, it catches up. Yeah.
So something just occurred to me when you were saying that. Then you were talking about race pace.
Yeah.
You've told me you don't wear a watch when you're running, and you've never worn like a Garmin watch or anything like that.
No.
And you said that when you were at your fastest in training, you would track your pace using a
stopwatch.
I mean, tell me you're in your 30s without telling me you're in your 30s. But okay, fine. You might know where I'm going with this. How the fuck do you know what pace you're doing?
Yeah. So when I was younger and I was running track for clubs and stuff, we had a coach. So again, he would use a stopwatch and we would do our reps and interval based stuff. I think because I was so young and when you're in that environment, yes, you can have a watch, but sometimes for me that was a distraction. So when I'm running, I always, and this sounds really silly, but it's true, I always used to run on like intuition. So I would, and most athletes are like this, especially really good ones, you would get a feel for where you're, not you, Ian, I'm joking. You would get a really good feel for where, almost literally where you're at in terms of like I probably couldn't do it now, but I used to be able to run a 255 kilometer split off a 2-minute recovery for like 8 reps when I was doing track events, and you just know your cadence, and you know by how you're breathing where if your heart rate is too high and too low. Now you don't know it to my god, my heart rate is currently 150 beats per minute, but you know where you're almost like
you're like setting like an internal
it's like
clock
an internal
in
clock. It's almost
wow.
like I don't know what it's like because I can't play football to save my life, but it's probably similar to like other sports where as a footballer you've just got that intuition of, okay, this is where I take this pass, this is how I just slightly touch the ball to take control of it, and you get that feel for it. But yeah, so I used to always just know off the top of my head, because we would run in groups, almost like a peloton, which is a cycling term for what they do in cycling when they're racing. But you just run together, you'd listen to your cadence, you'd almost know where you're at, you'd know when to push and pull depending on what the coach said. But nowadays I do use watches for heart rate and everything like that, which we'll talk about next week. But
so when you go into your next race and you know that you want to do X
I will use
kilometers.
a watch. Yeah. So again, this is like a learn thing, because you can go off feel, but sometimes, especially in such an intense race like Hyrox, you can get lost in the numbers. So because Hyrox is such a mental race in terms of it's a hard mental toll on yourself. There will be times where you probably don't want to look at your watch to see how fast or slow you're going, and it fucks with your mentality of like, oh my god, I'm dying here, but I need to pick it up. Yeah. You're probably far better off just focusing on controlling that heart rate, lowering your breathing, focusing on your cadence, relaxing your shoulders, not running like this because you're just pushing it so much. And then having a quick look as you enter the rock zone. Okay, where am I at? Okay, bang. And then and it's a real, you have to concentrate. You can't,
switch off.
Yeah, you just can't. People think, I'll just run round. And I mean, even something as simple as when you're running into the rock zone, knowing what station to go to. I know a lot of people that write the station numbers on their hands in permanent marker and stuff like that. And obviously with more experience, you just get used to knowing which one to hit into, because when you're so fatigued and you've got so much lactate going through your system and mentally you're absolutely fucked, the hardest thing to do is to concentrate.
So the thing that I got really wrong, and I was glad my sister was there, was because we had a course where one of those ones where you go round twice, and it's the second time you went to the rock zone. I'd forgot how many times I'd gone round. I was about to go round again.
Yeah, this is it.
Like, I was absolutely gassed, and I was stood with my sister arguing about how many times we'd gone round. So I mean, like, we probably wasted 30 seconds. But she was like, no, we have been round this twice. And she was right in the end. But like, I spent the rest of the race thinking we were going to get a penalty because we hadn't gone round. So it goes to show that one of the things I really am trying to coach myself to do is stay present. So I said before, 100%. When I'm running, I'm meditating. No, got to be present.
Yeah, and even with your training and stuff like that, it's just being, it's not, it's a weird thing to say, but it's not giving in to the exhaustion of just doing the reps. It's like, concentrating as well. I know that sounds simple, but it's such a big factor. And obviously when you're doing your singles race, they have a massive board now where you can see how many laps you have left. And again, with time, with practice, you'll hopefully get to a stage where you can block out a lot of the noise, whether you've got family watching you, whether you've got your own personal expectations of, I'm doing crap, I'm doing good, I need to do whatever, to just focus on being present, like you say, looking at the board every time you go around and just keeping that level of calm. Yeah, and again, that'll keep your heart rate low, because if you just completely lose it, your heart rate's gonna go through the roof. Yeah, you're gonna get to burpees and think, what the fuck have I signed up for? And then
the burpee board jumps. Oh my god.
The rest of it is just torture. Yeah.
I want to talk about food as fuel.
Okay.
Because this has been a big part of my journey. I've in the past I've tracked protein and calories when I've wanted to lose weight. That's pretty much been all I've really focused on. And it's only really now that I'm realising carving up for things is really useful, but the timing of it is also really useful. So maybe talk me through your food on the days leading up to the race and then maybe the day of the race.
Yeah. I've always been similar to you. I've never really, probably because I've never had to, but I've never really super focused on protein intake and carbs and fats, etc. Again, intuitively always known, I go off feel majority of the time. So I won't necessarily track my protein, but I'll be very conscious to have a high protein diet, because I know that I need probably 1.5 grams per body weight of protein to get in. So a day of 150 grams of protein is going to be good for me. I also go off whether my DOMs are continuing through the week. So
really,
yeah. So if I do a training session and I'm super sore for a few days, I always look back on what that training session was. So it's okay, well, did I sleep well the night before? Did I sleep well and feel well after the session? If I didn't, and well, that's why you're sore for more than 2 days or whatever, it usually is. Is my nutrition on point? Is my supplementation on point? Have I had enough carbs? So that I go off feel quite a bit. Big fan of mobility as well for recovery. And again, because it is such a not only an intensive event to race but to train for, and this is where again we're going to go down a black hole of injuries and things like that, but again we'll talk about it next week. But I've always been a carb heavy athlete. I've never played around with just doing high fats and that whole keto thing or anything like that. I work well on carbs, and you need to fuel your muscles with a lot of glycogen. Always been a big fan of high sugar. Again, people think, oh my god, you can't have sugar. Yeah, you can't sit around eating donuts and cakes and biscuits.
God damn it.
Damn it. But you need a fast acting source of glucose, and there's nothing better than sugar, or honey. Big fan of honey, bagels, jam, that sort of thing. So for me, that would be a consistent around a normal training block. But to talk about what I do leading up to a race, I wouldn't change anything, because then this is where I think people go wrong. They think, oh my god, I need to do this super scientific carb loading experiment before a race. You don't know if that's going to mess up with your stomach. You don't know if you need the toilet during a race and all this sort of stuff. So just keep with what suits you well. If you eat porridge and a banana most days, do it on race day. Don't think you have to do something crazy. But for me, I keep it completely the same. I usually start, hashtag carb loading, probably 3 or 4 days out. So if I'm racing on a Saturday and then I'm traveling on a Thursday or a Friday, depending whether it's a race in the UK or abroad, I'm just eating carb heavy dinners and snacks probably 3-4 days out. So big fan of pasta, and pasta bolognese, whatever, lasagna, eat loads of bagels, all that sort of stuff. And then leading on the day of the race, I tend not to have anything super big before a race. I'll have depending on if I'm in a hotel or I can take food with me, I'd have bowl of porridge with loads of honey, Depending on how hungry I am, I might have like an extra bagel. But the big thing for me isn't necessarily the food, it's my hydration. So I think, again, something that people probably don't think about, but when you're in an indoor environment with 12,000 people...
Oh my God, it was so hot.
Your temperatures, you think you sweat in the gym by yourself.
No.
You imagine what it's going to be like when you're...
I've never known anything like it.
When you're shoulder to shoulder with that many people, and your heart rate and adrenaline is already through the roof because you're race nervous. Hydration is like, I'd rather be super hydrated than focus on carb loading for a race. And people are different, right? But you need the right amount of sodium in your system. You need to at least be drinking, I used to have like 1,000 milligrams of sodium before I train and after.
Are you doing that by just adding salt towards it, or are you doing one of those little tablet things?
No. So again, depending if you've got the money, you can get the hydration sachets. There's loads of different companies that do really good ones. Again, watch out for the bullshit of ones that are just really high potassium, because it's the sodium content you want for hydration. That's what keeps a lot of water in your system, keeps your blood flowing as well, which is stop your temperature rising and stops you from sweating too much and losing all the electrolytes in your system, stops you from cramping, all that sort of good stuff. So high sodium content is what you want to look for. If you can't afford the sachets and the scoops or whatever, I just literally put Himalayan rock salt in squash, and it's literally the same thing. You can taste the saltiness. I know some people that even just, swirl salt around the mouth before a race. But yeah, obviously don't have too much because you'll shit yourself or be sick. Yeah, but yeah, that's what I do, and that's what I've done.
How long before the race do you stop eating? Like what like eating to race?
Yeah. So I usually leave at least an hour and a half. So if I know that I'm racing at 10 o'clock, I will be up and eating at 7. Up and eating at 7, eat my usual stuff, drink loads, to the point where I'm going to the toilet quite a bit, so which is a good sign for me. I'm like, okay, I'm hydrated here. Eat, let it settle down. I don't go to the race venue. I don't walk around with everybody, and everybody's different, right? Because you want to take in the atmosphere and things like that. But I go in, get my register and leave, because if you're in there walking around or sitting down, your heart rate's going to go through the roof just through pure nervousness or whatever else. So I literally leave. I always I'll go sit in a local coffee shop. I just try and settle my heart rate and my nerves and whatever else. But I'd never stand there.
What about gels? You into the gel life?
For me personally, no. I didn't even take gels when I was running half marathons. You can take them. I think they're more useful for anything above a half a marathon in terms of duration. So like 100% for a marathon, you'd carb load, you'd use gels, hydration sachets, etc. For Hyrox, nah. I think I've got enough to concentrate on. I don't want to be thinking about grabbing a gel off somebody. Yeah.
Well, you're not allowed to now.
No,
you have
you're
to have
not.
it on
Yeah,
you.
and people do it.
Yeah,
people do it. But
I did. I think I just left it too late.
Yeah.
It was like beyond the point.
Yeah. And do you know what? The reality is, if you've ate enough, if you've slept well enough, if you've hydrated enough, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My coach says completely opposite. But yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so you talked about it a little bit before, but I'd just like to know why Hyrox has got so popular. And I'm going to say this because we obviously met you at the gym. So Ian behind the camera, there's my husband. We met you at the gym that we go to, and I remember Ian being like, "Oh, he competes in Hyrox," and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" Yeah. And like fast forward 18 months, and I'm running a Hyrox, and it seems to have happened really quickly. Why has it got so popular?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where it's like the access to the event is, the access to entry, is super accessible. You can there's people that are, obviously there's an age limit to compete in it, which I think is 16 or 17. But you can be as old as you like, you can be as fit as you like, you can be not fit, you can be somebody that's, just about running a 5K or anything like that. So there's so many different abilities, and like I say, the access to the event is super low in a good way. If you look at CrossFit's great, but unless you're Olympic lifting,
the skills.
Yeah, so it's high. It's Hyrox is, I don't want to say low skill, because it isn't, but but it's low skill in terms of, you're just pushing and pulling and carrying.
They're skills that most people who have been to the gym before have.
Yes, exactly. And they're skills you can also refine quite easily through, repetition and things like that. Whereas, Olympic lifting, yes, you can pick up skills quick, but, to get any weight above your head, it takes a long time. But yeah.
Okay, we're 10 minutes going into the race and I'm shitting myself, I'm panicking, I'm whatever it is, I'm having a meltdown, and you've only got time to give me one piece of advice, what do you think it would be?
Slow down. You weren't expecting that, was you?
No, I wasn't. For someone who at their most tired ran a 6.5 minute kilometre in my last Hyrox, telling me to slow down is wild.
And I'll caveat that. I think I'd probably say to you, remember the race doesn't start until the burpee broad jumps. And it's so true. Everybody goes out like a deer in headlights, and the adrenaline's pumping, your heart rate's going through the fucking ceiling. You'll do your first K and you'll feel good, and you'll do a good ski erg and you think, oh, I've got this. And then you'll just carry that into
the wall.
You'll just carry that into pushing your sled, and then you'll come off the sled and you can't walk, and you're this is it's actually happening.
Yeah.
And then you get to the burpees and you're just like questioning your life, and then you're like down and up, down.
That's
and up.
so true, because like I said before, I've got a strength background, so for me the sled push, sled pull was the easy bit. I did the sled push in like fucking 30 seconds or something mad, and then I was running afterwards and I was like, why do my legs feel so shit?
What is this?
This is horrific. But, and then I was saying to my sister, I was like, we need to slow down.
So that I'd probably
pace it.
Yeah, jokes aside about the slowing down, but the race, it's a long race, and especially for somebody that's new to the sport, and it's a learning curve. Not many people go straight into it and do really well, and I think that's just the whole element of Hyrox getting super popular, and everybody's doing it, and you've got to be super fast, and you've got to smash your first Hyrox. I'd fuck up probably every race I do.
Do you think people underestimate it because they think, oh, it's just a run, these look really
easy?
100%,
yeah. I think a lot of people, even if you're from a so-called sporting background, you're a rugby player or football player, and actually there are a few of the sports where people have done really well, because it's a good comparison in terms of an activity that's high power, high strength, stop and start. Same as rugby. When you talk about skill specific, there's a lot of breaks in the game, but then it's high power, high intensity. Hyrox, you're going semi-slow, you're running, and then bang, power effort. Okay, bring the heart rate down, get into my running again. Bang, ski erg effort. So it lends itself well to those sort of sports. But yeah, I think people do underestimate it.
Okay, talk to me about supplements. What are you taking?
I got pills. So I take creatine, so 5 grams a day. Consistently.
That's not much for a guy, 5 grams?
It's probably the minimum amount you need, so it's probably the most scientifically researched supplement.
I read this, yeah.
Yeah, good for general cognitive functioning, and obviously for recovery, increasing muscle mass, all this sort of stuff. So 5 grams a day. I don't cycle it, I just continuously take it. I take vitamin D, omega-3 just for general health. I take turmeric for anti-inflammatory, so like recovery. And what else do I take? I take a few herbs.
Herbs?
Yeah, the good herbs. So I
Should we just clarify that? It's not drugs, right?
No. It's not drugs. It's not drugs. So like ashwagandha. I take Tonga Ali, which is like a natural...
Never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's like a good natural testosterone sort of booster. It sounds like I'm taking drugs, but I'm not. And what else do I take? Oh, and I take beta-alanine, which is one of my favourite ones. Yeah, so...
But can you not get that from protein powder?
Yeah, but not from protein powder, but you can... There's... It's like you can get creatine from eating meat, but you'd have to eat a whole field of cows to get, a certain amount of... Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry for everybody that's vegetarian.
Everyone who's probably listening to this is probably taking pre-workout because people love pre-workout.
Yes,
personally,
I can't deal with pre-workout. I hate it.
Beta-alanine is the one that gives you the itch. It's not the caffeine.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm no scientist on or nutritionist on it, but from what I understand, it's and I've taken it for years. It's a lactic buffer, so lactic acid or acidosis is when you get like a buildup of hydrogen ions in your blood. It stops and impairs your muscles' ability to produce force, which obviously you need during any sporting activity. So beta-alanine is a really good lactic buffer. So it allows you to basically do more work for longer. And I do cycle that. Sounds like I'm on drugs. So yeah, I take, I think it's 5 grams as well. I used to take it before any high intensity exercise. So if as part of my training week, I know I've got a real high intensity sort of lactic session, or I've got like a compromised running session where I'm practicing the ability to get up to speed with my K reps, my kilometre reps, as well as and do a strength exercise, I'll take beta-alanine, and I'll take it 100% before race day. I'll even, whack it in my mouth, water straight away, probably about half an hour to 45 minutes before I race.
So the thing about this is, because I've recently really got into more supplementing. There's obviously like a sort of...
Oh, sorry, I take magnesium as well. So I'm a big sleep geek. So when you talk about recovery, magnesium before bed.
I've just started taking a magnesium drink before bed, and I love it. Yeah. There's a certain level you get to where you have to start taking this stuff a lot more seriously. But I guess if we talk about more the other end, the entry level, that someone's just starting to take training a bit more seriously. They're just starting to think about their, their supplements and what they're eating. If you had to pick like one or two that you're like, nah, this will make a big difference, what would you go with?
Yeah, definitely creatine. Yeah. Men and women. I don't think that you can't take it.
I take creatine. Yeah. Thanks for noticing.
Definitely creatine. And I think just to backtrack a little bit, like you said, even when I was coaching, I'd always say, focus on, especially if you're new to this, don't think you've got to train like a superstar, take 1 million supplements and your life's going to change. Focus on really good sleep. Focus on a good, whole food sort of diet, whatever that is. Make sure you're getting adequate calories in. Don't think you need to restrict yourself and all this rubbish. Adequate calories, good sleep, good mobility and recovery. And that is a good trajectory to, maybe when you get to a point where you've mastered that, okay, I can additionally add supplementation to get that extra 1%, because that's all it is really.
So you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet?
No, absolutely not.
God damn it.
God damn it.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you a couple more questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, okay, the devil's on your shoulder, you're in the trenches, you're doing an event, whether it's a Hyrox or a marathon, wherever it is, you're in the pit and you're like, I can't fucking go any further. We've all been there.
Yeah.
What are you saying to yourself?
It's a good point that you've raised here, because
because you've only got you, right?
Yeah,
unless you're doing an event with somebody else, and then they're probably going through their own battle too.
Yeah.
So there's strong mental game needed here.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in, and again, not to get too sort of spiritual, but I'm a big believer in like remembering like your why. So why are you doing it? And people are different. Some people, when they're going through, a hard event or hard times and stuff, they, scream at themselves or say, oh, come on, you need blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's all about, I think about my brother quite a lot. Don't want to get too deep, because I might cry on a podcast. But yeah, no, I think about my brother a lot, and, the struggles that he goes through with his disability. And I just think myself, I'm just so lucky. Like, I can run, I can do these events.
Yeah.
I can, push myself, and I do really, really, honestly, always think about my family.
And you're inspiring him by doing this, so that drives you.
Yeah, 100%. And
nice.
It's like, this is a fortunate position to be in. And there's a clip that probably everybody should watch. It's on YouTube, of a boxing trainer called Teddy Atlas, and it's a famous corner speech that he gives to a fighter, and this fighter's like struggling in the closing rounds of a title fight, and he sits there and he goes, you're in it now. He goes, are you ready for the flames? And this fighter's like, what are you talking about, mate? And he's like, you are a firefighter. He's like, you embrace the flames, it's where you belong. And that always just completely resonates with me.
Nice.
So, this is what you signed up for.
Yeah.
You're in the fire, but you're a firefighter. You deal with the flames, you control the flames, and you move forward. So I'm a bit weird as I'm running around going,
I love that. I love that. I know.
As long as you're not like this.
Yeah.
I'm saying stuff to myself that like I'm really horrible to myself.
Yeah, people do. Yeah.
I'm like, don't be a fucking pussy, or like keep fucking moving.
Yeah, I used to do all that.
Yeah, I know, I love that. Okay, the final question. I couldn't do a Hyrox podcast without asking you the most asked question on any Hyrox thing. What do you think I'm going to ask you? The one question that's asked on every forum. Everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm putting a spot on.
Shoes.
Oh yeah.
Come on,
God.
like, okay, right. Then to explain to people as well why we're saying this, you're asking a lot from the shoe, so it has to be a running shoe, but also you have to be able to do the sled push, sled pull in it, and you effectively doing a whole load of squats towards the end as well. So what do you race in?
So I used to race in the Puma Nitros, which again Puma for Hyrox. It's the sponsor for Hyrox. They've brought out so many different shoes. They've brought out carbon plated shoes that I know some people race in. But then I moved over to Saucony's, so I race in the Endorphin Speed 3s. They for me, for Hyrox, as long as it's got a good grip plate on it, the shoe. So if you look at the bottom of the shoe, you can see how much grip it's got. Some haven't got a lot. They've just got on like the forefront of the where your toes would be. Others are completely covered in rubber, which for me is better because, again, one of the things that Hyrox will probably struggle with as it grows globally is the consistency of races in terms of race courses, carpet used. I know they're getting better and that sort of thing, but you just don't know on the day what you're going to be walking into. You can train all you like on different stuff, so that's hugely important. But I also know people that race in carbon plated shoes. Which again, people might go, oh, well, that's just for people that are, you know, super fast at running, or they're running like actual marathons, half marathons. But yeah, I think it's personal preference. But I think I'll stay with the Saucony's. I will probably get a carbon plated shoe as well. But as long as it's got good grip, as long as it's got good support on the heel, because don't forget you're doing a lot of running. You're doing 8 kilometers of running, so don't go for anything that's like not, you know, got a really short drop on it, heel drop and things like that, and just make sure you've got good grip, and make sure also the way that you tie your shoes. Again, I've seen people lose shoes because they haven't tied their laces properly, so yeah, just think about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then my final question for you.
Go on.
When's your next Hyrox?
I haven't raced for a while actually, but I'm planning to race in January or February. Coming off my injury, I want to sort of get back into like a good half marathon time. Again, talking about what we spoke about earlier, I know my strength is my running, so I just want to tweak that a little bit more. Maybe want to drop a few kilos, just to get sort of, you know, race ready. And yeah, hit one in Jan or Feb.
Let's fucking go.
Let's go.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Super interesting stuff in there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening. Remember, you can also watch this on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe so we can keep doing this. And next week, we've got some exciting guests on, so watch this space. That's going to be cool. I've been Lydia.
I've been Matt.
And this is the Perk and Pace Podcast. Bye.
Bye.